Willkommen, bienvenue, welcome once again to Cladding Matters, the one show that tries to present the truth without covering it with a whole series of cladding lies. It's amazing. We've got lies, damn lies, and letters from the council. They all seem to be in the same group. May I introduce to you all Hamish McLay of Search and Convey, of course, Steve Day of the Building Safety Scheme.org. I'm Gareth Wax of Many Purple Hats. And what we're trying to do is bring to your eyes the truth of the matter. We're not going to cover it with obfuscation, with distraction, or other kind of tactics. Today's topic is trust and transparency in the cladding crisis. And as is traditional, Hamish, would you start us off?
I make no apologies for actually us staying almost within the same topic. We were hoping to speak of cladding matters as a generalization and the seriousness that we have, not in this country, but in the world, to be quite honest. Well, most aspects of the Western world, they very sensibly build different. We say all sorts of things about the Russians, for example. They would not accept the quality of building that we actually put up in the UK and allow people to die in. They just would not allow it, whether it's to do with compartmentalizing or whether it's to do with the external parts. Or it would not happen. And really, we do have so many corners have been cut right the way through. And we want to just emphasize this particular point that there are a lot of people pressed in a serious position throughout England and Wales we were focusing on, but it is Scotland and Ireland, of course, is the United Kingdom. And it was meant to be everybody we were concerning ourselves with. But what we've actually been we've almost been pushed into a corner by a council which has no transparency, which we just cannot trust in terms of what they're writing, because they will write one thing, as they have done, to the extent that there's absolutely no evidence that the residents in these particular sort of blocks of flats were in any danger of fire, potentially fire. There was no concern as far as the leader of the council. Now, we haven't had any individual ones who are not Labour members come out and disagree. All of the Labour members, so we now have somewhere in the region of 16 people agree that the evidence didn't exist, that there was anything wrong with this particular. But we actually know, don't we, whether it's cladding manufacturers, whether it happens to be residents who live there can actually sort of see certain things that are going on, whether it's the insurance companies. I mean, who actually sort of else needs to know that basically where people live, in fact, it's a bit unfair of putting it, but Richard Attenborough, that we have an endangered species in the UK. People live in blocks of flats, they're endangered.
It's crazy.
And no transparency about the whole thing.
It's crazy. I'm going to say a word. I'm sorry, I don't normally come to the fore, but I'm going to say something. I'm begging all of you people, residents of RAC, please apply some critical thinking. Please don't allow people to mark their own homework. Please look beyond their epithets and statements. Try and gather some real information. And then speak to Steve, because Steve has got more than enough information to demonstrate that back at the time of building, that the building he's stuck in at the moment, so I think stuck is the appropriate word, did not meet building regs, was not deemed fireproof even back then, no matter what the council may be blarneying you with today. Steve, please explain why people should apply more critical thinking before they go off half-cock.
Well, I mean, the facts that we've put out there are very clear in the case of Royal Artillery Quay. So the council, Greenwich Council in this case, made a very clear council position that there are no defects at the time of construction. They said it was based on all the information that they had, all available information, which included a vast amount of evidence we sent them in 2024, which proved that there were regulation breaches at the time of construction beyond doubt.
Was it not true that the fire authority stated that there were defects at the time of construction as well.
Yeah, well, we had the local authority view, which is Greenwich Council, and also the London Fire Brigade, which is the enforcement authority in Greenwich, also condemn the lack of fire doors on the bottom level of the fire shaft. So you can go there and you can see that these doors don't exist, and those are breaches at the time of construction. You know, so if you want your proof, just go and check. And as for the proof that it breached regs, the fire brigade said, well, what version of the law was at play? It was the Reg 2000, and it said, yeah, you need those fire doors. So it's all very provable. But the council do not want to accept that. And after 5 weeks of those that have followed this saga of Royal Artillery Keys, we came to a place where yesterday I was doing a interview with the Sun newspapers who are covering the story because it's the anniversary of Grenfell on tomorrow. And basically, they spent some money, put letters in envelopes, and then delivered them to
the council. The council spent some money, yes?
Yes, that's right. And then they delivered them on the morning of the interview with the Sun. So it basically said the following, and this is very serious because it's undermining our campaign, that there are building regulation breaches at the time of construction, which means the builder is guilty of not keeping to the law. If Absolutely. It's due to the regulations changing, then it's not the builder's fault. So that distinction is very clear. But let me read out what they sent to every resident they post this letter through. So, we are concerned that comments made on behalf of the council have been, wait for it, misinterpreted. In the interest of clarity, the council was asked if it could exercise a power under the Building Act to ensure that necessary remediation works were carried out. The council's position is there is no evidence to support action by the council under the Building Safety Act. Well, yes, we did ask them to use that power, but they haven't really said what they did, because in addition to taking a view on whether they could use the power or not, they then made an additional point that there was no evidence of building regulation breaches at the time of construction. That is not dealt with in this letter. And then they go on to say, this is not to say that there are no issues with the construction of RAC. Indeed, everyone agrees remediation works are necessary. The position does not undermine the role of the building safety regulator or the fact that remediation works have now been agreed. Building safety laws have changed since the original construction, and our focus is on moving forward to ensure that the works agreed are completed within the timescale.
Well, of course, it's going to be focused on moving forward. Everyone's focused on moving forward. But the point is, they've stated previously that there was no fault at the time of construction, when it's demonstrably so.
Absolutely. And the point they're making is building safety laws have changed. So what it implies is that Barratt hasn't done anything wrong, the builder. It's because the laws have got stricter, and therefore we're wrong. And they said we've misinterpreted. They've used that word to undermine the resident safety campaign, which is being undermined by the council. And so they haven't retracted the statement. And they did this whilst 40 of us were having a photograph taken by the Sun and fighting for our building safety. So this is really unacceptable from the council. And of course, we went back on that to Mr. Caswell, who's the deputy chief executive of the council, and basically we made the point that we think they're in breach of a code of conduct, and we said,
well, for not providing a balanced,
yeah. So it says, your letter declines to withdraw the misleading and incorrect assertion of no evidence of the building regs at the time of construction breaches, and also fails to explain that an injunction under the the Building Act can be sought if there are breaches of building regulations enforced at the time of construction. And we say that they conflate the question of compliance with building regulations enforced at the time of construction and building safety law changing. And then this is the killer bit. It is most disappointing that the council is prepared to issue a letter that contravenes the objectivity, in our view, paragraph 16, and even-handedness, paragraph 19, of their code of recommended practice on local authority publicity. So basically, just for your listeners, what that means is if they are going to post a load of letters to our door on our building safety campaign, they need to say what the issues are on our side for the even-handedness, on their side, and then explain why they've come to whatever conclusion they have. They only presented a view which was false, that the laws have changed, and that's what the dispute is about, making us out to be idiots. Because if we've said, oh, the council don't believe there's defects all along, and then they said, we always thought there were defects. We do look a bit silly, don't we? But it's not us that are wrong. It's they're conflating the law change and refusing to retract that damaging position.
Okay, hang on. Hamish, is this just another example of don't look over there, look over here?
Well, no, not really. Basically, we have a series of people, and I think the challenge is where in fact does it stop? We could have the builders turning around and saying, crikey, those poor fellows, those poor creatures, and what I was saying earlier about the species which is under threat. If they actually turned around and actually really thought about it, and you don't need to think very far about, hey, these guys feel that they were under fire. Is there any truth in that? Shouldn't we find out? We built the place. That doesn't come into it, because all of the time they're trying to actually keep hold of their money and get away with the least possible remediation they can. Now, that is not the case just in Royal Artillery Quays. We spoke about the case last week, not that many miles away. Another building built by the same builder, with part remediation carried out, which hasn't met any of the standards, and it's still failing. Now, insurance people are not going to inflate the cost of insurance by 5 times if they don't have, if just for the hell of it. There is, because they feel that there is a danger, and they take risk, the insurance company, so they put money into, so all of these, so it's not, unfortunately, there aren't two sides to this. There's either a pack of stuff which is basically not transparent in any way at all, whereas the full proof of the situation, the insurers, the residents, the report from Grenfell, all of these people and all of these attitudes, which are quite seriously enough, even to the aspect that they're likely at some stage or another, if there is some big fallout, it does put the council and those members who are themselves complicit within the decision, it puts them under law in a serious. What happens when you come back and find the residents were right in the first place? They've been complaining. You've denied them to speak. You've agreed with your leader. So, like the individual residents having to pay and suffer as a consequence of what's going on, the council members themselves could end up in exactly the same position should anything unfortunate happen. In fact, they could still anyway.
And it's on the cards, isn't it? At some point, Steve, it's not a matter of if, but when.
Well, yes, I think you have to remember that the reason this matters isn't about us being right. It's about the fact that only half of our remediation is signed off in Royal Artillery Quays.
Right.
So the internal defects were identified in a small sample set of 8 flats. There was roughly, 450 or so defects in just 8 flats. The report goes on to say the defects are so serious that they recommend prosecutions if a fire happens. Prosecutions. That's how dangerous these defects are. So the council saying these defects don't exist on an unsigned off remediation is not very helpful. And also, it's undermining the fact that the building safety regulator is the lead regulator for buildings above 18 meters. All our buildings here, 8 buildings, are above 18 meters. So why is the council making findings about all the evidence and saying there's no evidence to suggest Barratt didn't do the right thing at the time of build. Why are they undermining the regulator? Now, in that letter, I didn't read the bit out, but they oh no, I think I did actually. They said we're not undermining the building safety regulator. Well, they are. The council are, because they are saying there's no evidence that anything went wrong at the time of construction, and implying dangerously that it's just due to the regulations being tightened up after Grenfell. False.
Amazing. Amazing. Does it need me to write yet another song? God's sakes. Look,
I think so.
I think maybe so. Look, Hamish, the reason why this channel exists is to throw a spotlight on a process that should have been dealt with years ago. And here we are now. Hamish, would you care to please take us home?
We would very much like the council, the local council, the Royal Artillery Keys, to actually resolve this issue. And anybody from any other councils who happen to be listening as well, or residents from any other council areas who find themselves in that same position, let's all of us try and join together and say, look, it is not transparent. I mean, we've got a situation at the moment, and very sad, even the regulator has not actually put pressure on anybody. The people who live in those properties, the people who live in those flats, having been told that it's going to take 110 weeks to carry out, what the hell is the point in carrying out remediation which doesn't make people safe? It has not been revealed to those residents what the content of that remediation is going to be. So they're going to be put under pressure for that particular length of time. Are they going to be paid any disturbance monies because they're being disturbed for that period of time whilst remediation is going to be carried out? Who's going to be responsible? The builders or the council have agreed with it? But the insurance companies still are not happy. Have they made the insurance company happy? Have Barratt spoken to the insurance company?
The problem is, if you own a property like this, it's onerous just to live there. It's onerous because it's impossible to get any kind of sensible insurance on it. And it's onerous because you can't really sell it on without lying through your teeth. It's onerous because you can't really rent it out without lying through your teeth. It's an impossible situation, and I implore the council to please do the right thing. Tell the truth. Stop obfuscating. Stop hiding. Come out. Be plain. And there will be a tune coming. Just you wait. To all of you watching, thank you for supporting this journey. To Steve Day, I commend you on sticking your honour to the sticking post. And to Hamish McLay, thank you for facilitating this. It plays a very important job to act as the siren call. And to all of you out there, please keep your feet on the ground, keep reaching for the stars, and let's fight for some justice here. Until next time, look after your mental health. Bye-bye now.
There's a tale about some folks with hammers and some nails. They'll promise you the moon, but their word always fails.